be here to
You're
take
the
me
one,
away.
aren't you?
Playing for so long.
You're the one, aren't you? I
You're
remember
the
you
one,
from my
aren't you?
dream.
Who are all these strange people?
You're the one, aren't you?
How did it get this
You're
far?
the one, aren't you?
You must be here to take me away. Who are all these strange people? We've been playing for so long. How did it get this far?
You're the one, aren't you? You're the one, aren't you?
You! God damn it, what are the chances? I survived 10 hours out here in this pit of hell, and I had to run into you? The scum who killed his own wife and children? Why, Pendejo? Huh? Why you do it? You going to kill me too? Come on, inmate, kill me, I dare you!
Kill him before he kills you.
Wait, he's just confused.
So it turns out you don't have the cojones to kill me when you have the chance. You fucking inmate. Go to hell, I am done with you.
He'll shoot you in the back.
Give him a reason to trust you.
And why do you follow me, inmate? Who are you fooling? You hate me as much as I hate you. All you inmates think CEOs are evil, but we are prisoners in Abbott as much as you. You ever think of that? When this shit happened, I immediately headed to town, down this road. I wanted to find Consuela and my daughters. My beautiful girls. But I got to our house, it was on fire. These fucking putas everywhere. No sign of my family. I have been looking ever since, and I will not give up. You still here, inmate? Torque. Isn't that what they call you? Well, come on then. We may hate each other, we may die anyway, but we will kill more of these putas together than alone.
Cannot land rescue craft. Repeat, beacon must be restarted. Anyone read?
Inmate, hurry! Torque, over here! The Coast Guard is our only hope to survive, and they need the lighthouse on in order to land here. But the earthquake knocked the power out. We need to get the generator started again. Follow me. Inmate, hurry! What are they doing? Won't they let the dead rest?
Why did they believe us? We never thought they'd really do it. It all went wrong. It was fun, at first. We didn't like them. We made them go away.
Let's get out of here. These dead do not sleep well. Not on Carnate.
Old Cemetery. This cemetery is home to the remains of 11 Puritans who were accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake in 1681. Witch burning was all but unheard of on this continent, with other suspected witches, such as those in Salem, having met their demise at the end of a rope. It appears that hanging was not enough for the residents of Goodsmouth, no doubt because Carnate Island is a place that drives people to extremes.
Inferna. From what I have witnessed, this manifestation of evil appears to have two distinct forms. The first, a young girl in Puritan dress, perhaps 13 years of age. This transforms into an altogether more disturbing flaming creature. Both clutch a small handmade doll. To my mind, there is no doubt that these creatures are tied to the three young girls who made witchcraft accusations in the late 1600s and led to the incendiary death of 11 innocents.
Torque! Over here! You filthy inmates. You brought hell to this island, didn't you? Always scheming. I hear you plotting how to get us officers. Are you really? Look out for the fire. It's going to blow! Together we are quite a team, eh? Who would have ever thought I would be partners with an inmate? This way, inmate. Vámonos! Madre Dios, you inmates are all loco. But in this case, I can forgive it. Hurry up and get that generator going. Adelante! Time is my enemy. Must fight. Damn you! Where? Why do they call you Torque? What sort of name is that anyway? Do you inmates think you can play with it? Inmate, you have done it! The lights are on. Let's get back to the lighthouse and leave this evil place.
T, I'm coming to visit. I want to see you and the boys. I've got good news. Things are going well here. And I've got a proposition. I think we can make it work. For once, things are gonna work out. I can't wait to see the boys, and you too.
This way, inmate. Vámonos.
I'll meet you at your apartment, okay? See you soon, T.
Torque, over here. This way, inmate. Vámonos. Inmate, hurry. Torque, over here.
I'm coming to visit.
Inmate, hurry! Inmate, hurry!
Ring around the roses.
Look!
Pocket
Inmate, what are they
full of
doing?
roses. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down.
My wife told me the story of this place. 300 years ago, there was a Puritan village on this island. 3 young girls accused villagers of being in league with the devil. There were burnings. I think this is where they did it. They feared evil from within, but they did not see the real enemy.
Back where you came from! Ha!
Oh no, inmate. I do not think so. I'm not going in those caves. You go if you want. I'll wait out here.
Hey! What are you doing here?
You said no one would find us.
Shh, keep your voices down.
Who are you?
Don't worry. We're still safe from those girls.
You didn't lead the creatures in here, did you?
Waiting for you. Playing games is only the fire will.
We are so fucked! Don't stop moving!
Jesus, what have you done? You brought me in here, asshole! doing here? You said no one would find us.
Keep your voices down.
Who are you?
Don't worry. We're still safe from those girls.
You didn't lead the creatures in here.
Evil. Fire will cleanse your soul.
Jesus, what have you done?
I thought we were safe.
I hate those things! You brought them in here, asshole!
Run for it. We are so fucked. Don't stop moving. We're not gonna make it.
Jesus, what have you done?
For God's sake, haven't you done enough?
Thanks for killing those
Stay the fuck away from me!
Home.
You
I'm
almost
just gonna
got us
stay
killed!
here.
You
We're
fuckwit!
safe. I ain't going nowhere.
This way, you mate. Vámonos! Torque! Over here! Damn. The power is on, but the light is not turning. The lighthouse is old and decrepit, half broken, but you will need to fix it. I will keep watch out here, you go inside. I'll wait out here and keep watch.
see stuff better now, and I wish we'd had more time together. I wish things were different.
Inmate, hurry! The light is on. Oh, now the Coast Guard can come. Muchas gracias, Stork. You have proven yourself. I still say inmates are scum, but you, maybe less so, see? Come on, now we can make our way to town. Inmate, hurry! The road is gated up here. I don't know how we'll get through, but we will have to.
It's not just Abbott. It's this whole island. It's a cesspool of human atrocity. People come here, they do things maybe they wouldn't normally do. Evil fucking shit. But you're different. You're the wild card in the deck. But you set me free. You never forget a debt.
I owed you. Now go on. Find out what kind of man you are.
What was that? Lightning? It almost hit us. Well, at least we can make it through the gates now. Come on. Torque, over
This is
here.
Coast Guard Prometheus. Carnate 1 or Carnate 2, do you copy?
Look, over there.
Daddy, these girls taught me a new game.
Do you want to play, mister?
I don't understand what we just saw there, but I don't ever want to see it again. Did you kill your children, or did this place somehow do it? Like it has taken mine. Oh, these are black times. It hurts too much to stop and think about it. We must keep going. This way, you mate. Vámonos!
Where are you going? We want you to be here with us.
Mira! Those fucking creatures, they've trapped us! It looks like our time has come! It is horrible. We're done for. This smoke will kill us soon. It is horrible to die this way after surviving so long. I will never see my Consuela again. Dios mío. A miracle. The fire is out. Again, you prove yourself. Come on. We must get to town. Look for an inmate. I will have to keep my eye on you. You are like a professional. Back to hell, inmate. Torque! Over here! In this fire, we pay for this. Que mala suerte! The road is out. There's no way across, and this is the only way to get to town. Inmate, watch out! That truck is on fire! For Consuelo!
So, you still need some help. In the White House, you showed me just how good a killer you really are. But you don't know anything. Go on to the dock, where you'll see how things really are.
What diablo was that? Well, at least we can make it across now. Come on! You know how to kill. I can see that. You have that this fire will pay for the sins of the island? You won't kill me! Holy Mary, Mother of God. Look, the town, it burns. My family, if they are still there, it is too terrible to think of. What has happened to this island? We must get to the town somehow. I must find Consuela. You're a father, right? Or were a father? I would do anything to keep my children safe. I cannot imagine any parent who would There is no way through! This inferno is too thick! I must go back to the town! I have to keep looking! You go on, inmate! Meet the Coast Guard at the docks! I will meet you there later!
You gave him the chance you never had.
Everything comes to an end.
Diagnosis is complete. Your cure is at hand. You might think my methods a bit unorthodox, but my results will speak for themselves. Ahead you will encounter something altogether unlike what you've seen before. But I have something that can help you. A device that can cure you, put your demons to rest. But only if it is sufficiently powered, and only if you are in your more, shall we say, primal form. Use this correctly, and you cannot help but be cured. You do want to be cured, don't you, Doc? It's up to you now.
He was like a shadow. I didn't see him, and then he was there. Oh, Daddy, I wish you could have been there. I know you would have kept us safe. The man was wearing blue.
They killed us to get to you, didn't they? I forgive you, Dad. You couldn't keep us safe forever. I just wish I could have said goodbye. You always had the worst luck, T. We didn't work out for so long. And when we got close, it all got taken away. You'd never hurt us. Not on purpose. No matter how angry you got at the world, you always loved me and the boys. Now's the time, T. You need to face down the anger you have inside. Remember, I'm right there with you.
sends his regards. Back in Eastern, he warned you, but you didn't listen. He said to leave you alive. Only you. Enjoy your new life.
Get on board, quick! I don't know what the hell's happened, but we gotta get out of here. Another boat's coming to pick up anybody else who's left. Hold on! You're that guy Torque, ain't you? I heard about you in the news. I got a friend at the DA's office. Says the prosecutor on your case is being indicted. Says you probably get a new trial. Guess it's your lucky day, huh? Jesus. You look like you've really been through hell.
Somebody's missing from this picture, T. I don't want us to ever be apart again. Love always, Carmen.
I think people like being frightened. I think they like exploring the darker side of humanity and looking into an environment they wouldn't normally, have access to, most likely. Early on, the team would talk about what we found compelling in the horror genre, and far and away, The Shining was the movie that stood out for everyone as something that was uniquely horrific, yet not cheesy or ridiculous at the same time. It's a serious piece that is also intensely frightening. So we really wanted to create that same feeling of you're walking through an environment and then you're seeing visions of things that are, you don't maybe understand right away, but over the course of the whole game, come to create a sort of a full picture of, one man's tortured soul and the horrible historic events that have taken place on this island. The island has had a colorful history, where there was a rock quarry that was used to build the prison. There was a beach where a ship wrecked. There's an old abandoned asylum, which is a Victorian home from the late 19th century. That served two important functions, which was to keep the game environment varied over the course of the game and to allow us to sort of bring out history through recreating different architectural styles, or obviously a rock quarry is going to look very different than a beach and so forth.
The way we portrayed the history of the island was to give the player opportunities to find bits of the history as they progress through the game. And in doing so, they uncover sort of a more macro vision of the island's nature.
We didn't really want a character that looked any particular nationality or race. He really is almost Neanderthal in his appearance. He's very primal. We wanted that strength to kind of come through, so we built up some of those characteristics.
A tough character that no matter what he was doing, he always came through as like a really solid, calm, tough guy. And then he looked cool no matter what he was doing. Like, he was just shooting a gun, he looked good shooting a gun, and he looked tough and carried out an attitude throughout.
I think the primary thing we wanted to do was make the player feel that though they were in this intensely frightening and life-threatening situation, that they were in control of a character that could make it through if only they were able to manage it themselves. It's not like in some horror movies where the main characters are sort of weak and constantly tripping over roots as they're trying to run away from the guy, and they can just barely manage to survive. Torque is someone who can take on an army of creatures and blast them to bloody bits and then be ready for more.
Well, the thing with blood is it's actually a lot like the shadow map in terms of projecting geometry onto another object. So we basically take our blood texture map, we figure out what objects collided with, and we send it through a projection matrix, and it ends up being rendered on top of the other geometry, looking like it's actually attached to it. There's actually a whole series of different effects and objects that come into play. We have everything from blood that sprays onto the wall behind you. We have the player actually will have blood spray onto him. He will be covered from face to toe. We have the enemy that you're hitting, of course, gets damaged. You can lose limbs, you can lose your head. It really feels like you're actually doing physical damage to the world.
Something that was also important to me was to explore sort of the relationship between corrections officers and inmates. Since it is a prison environment, there's a lot of tension there between these sort of two factions, neither of which has really complete control over the prison.
Oh, he won't say. Claims he blacked the whole thing out. A likely story. The needle's too good for him. Filthy inmate, they should all die.
A likely story. The needle's too good for him. Filthy inmate, they should all die.
Since we were going for sort of a continuous immersive experience, we didn't have the benefit of mission screens or voiceover narration or something helping the player along. So it was a real challenge to sort of get the characters to both talk in a way that's realistic and also in a way that'll convey the story to the player.
Welcome to Carnate, inmates. Enjoy your stay.
Once the cataclysm happens and the creatures are everywhere, the corrections officers are really on the same side you are. From the beginning, we wanted to stay away from zombies and the more tired horror cliches that everyone's had enough of, and wanted to move on to something that was more disturbing and more unique to this experience. I think it was also early on we decided we wanted to have a theme for all the creatures so that they weren't just, this random Cthulhu monster or, this random apparition. Instead, it was they're each themed after different execution methods, which ties into the history of Carnate and all the various forms of humans killing humans that have gone on there.
Creatures, we wanted to make them as creepy as possible, make them feel very intimidating and deadly. We had a lot of inspiration for a lot of the creatures from movies like House on Haunted Hill and old Geiger stuff.
It really actually fell on probably one of the sickest character designers I've ever met, Ben. So he really tore it up and really was the inspiration for every one of these character designs. They really started to come home and really started to really have some depth to them once the sound got in. I have to say the sound is probably one of the most amazing pieces of work that's been put into this game. It's incredible.
I worked with the composer to come up with sort of a hybrid idea there where we would extract the elements for the music from the sound design. Objects that were made of various elements, stone, steel, things that had a long tone. We were using aluminum rods that were 10 and 12 feet long and getting them to resonate lengthwise. We were then striking them horizontally, just about anything we could think of to create sonic signatures that were not typically used in game soundtracks.
The biggest thing I hope the players bring to the game is their own sort of creativity. We've created sort of a world that the player can explore and can see the various historical events, but at the same time we were fairly careful not to explain too much to the player. So there's going to be a lot of sort of connecting the dots and putting your own spin on, well, I think this is what happened here, or understanding Torque's backstory. Different players may see it differently, and that's important since you are Torque.
I don't like being in here at night by myself. ghosts anywhere, they would be here.
Prisons and jails built in America in the 17 and 1800s were gruesome reminders that crime did not pay. In a time when deplorable living conditions walked hand in hand with death and personal tragedy, these institutions of punishment were truly terrifying places that assuredly left deep psychic fissures in this world and the next. The Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, was just such a place.
Most prisons before Eastern State was constructed were large open holding cells, and they would put everybody in together. They'd put adults in with children, men in with women, and all types of criminals. So petty thieves would be locked in with murderers, all packed into these large open holding cells. They were incredibly violent, disease-ridden. Sometimes disease would wipe out the entire prison population. There was very little sense that people would be better after they were released.
In response to these wretched conditions, a new type of prison was planned. Built on an elevated cherry orchard just outside Philadelphia, the Eastern State Penitentiary was supposed to be a new and humane way to house prisoners. But in fact, it turned out to be a place of solitude and misery.
In the early years, prisoners at Eastern State lived in extreme isolation. They woke up in their cells, spent 23 hours a day in their cell, went to bed in their cell, and knew almost nothing aside from this small white room. Typical sentence was about 2 years. Inmates were given some kind of simple work to do in their cells and given nothing to read except for the Bible. The majority of them were illiterate anyway. And so, in the early decades of the prison's use, the experience of an inmate would be about surviving isolation, day in, day out for years at a time with almost no human contact. Spending years in strict isolation can drive a person insane.
Prisoners were housed in small individual cells with no windows and shortened doorways, specifically designed to humiliate an inmate. The only light source in the room came from a single hole cut in the ceiling of the cell, called the Eye of God.
The prison cells at Eastern State were designed like small chapels. They have a high arched ceiling and blank white walls, and the only light comes in from above. And they call it the Eye of God. And so when you're in there, you look up and all you see is this little circle of daylight looking down, and it does look a little bit like an eye. And it's meant to create the impression that you're always being watched, and that even though there's no windows in the room, God is looking down at you through this little point, this little eye above. It's spooky.
The key to the success of Eastern State Penitentiary was the complete isolation of its inmate population. As a matter of practice, prisoners were hooded whenever they were outside their cells. Cells were built with soundproof walls in order to keep the prisoners from fraternizing with each other. For all essential purposes, the inmates were cut off from the outside world, forbidden to see another prisoner for the entire duration of their sentence.
The people who ran Eastern State Penitentiary had a fetish about silence, and so even the guards pacing these corridors wore socks over their shoes to muffle their footsteps. And the carts they used to roll food up and down the hallways had leather over the wheels. They'd roll silently up and down the hallways. Inmates ate in their cells. They slept in their cells. Inmates were only taken out of their cells to bathe about once every 2 weeks. And when they did that, they had their heads covered with a hood with no eye holes. Basically put a bag over their head so that all the inmate would remember from their time at Eastern State was the 4 walls of their cell.
Silence was strictly enforced at the Eastern State Penitentiary. If a prisoner was caught making any noise at all, they were severely punished. Prisoners who continually broke the rules faced stiffer and stiffer penalties. Over time, the prison's administrators had to resort to more intense forms of punishment to get their point across. Punishments for repeat offenders included the straitjacket, the iron gag, and a particularly hideous contraption called the mad chair.
Most prisons at the time were extremely violent, and inmates who came into Eastern State could expect at first they'd be treated very well. But if inmates committed infractions of the rules at Eastern State, they'd be treated the way they'd be treated at any other prison in the early 1800s, which was with extreme force. Sometimes they would take inmates out into their exercise yards, hang them by their wrists from chains, strip them naked and douse them with water in the wintertime. There was accounts of one inmate having ice hanging from his beard while he hung naked out in the exercise yards. There was even an inmate named Matthias Macumsey who was consistently making noise, and they couldn't get him to stop. And they put him in a device they called the iron gag. It held his hands behind his back, and a bar went up and into his mouth and put a metal rod against his tongue to keep him quiet. And he struggled against it, and his tongue swelled, and he choked to death. There was an investigation. They looked into it and decided that he'd asked for it. He had it coming. This was typical for the way prisons were run at the time. Life was cheap in the early 1800s.
If a prisoner survived solitary confinement and had the physical strength to conquer the prison's many torture devices, he had one more demon to defeat, that being disease. The prison's poorly designed heating, plumbing, and ventilation systems worked together to spread the putrid odor of human waste to every nook and cranny of the building. These unsanitary conditions caused outbreaks of illness that ravaged both the inmate population and the guards assigned to maintain order in the prison. Without a doubt, serving time at the Eastern State Penitentiary was a mind-numbing experience. There were many documented instances where prisoners went insane because they could not handle the isolated conditions that were the mainstay of the prison. The Pennsylvania system of punishment at the Eastern State Penitentiary was finally abandoned as it produced very few reformed prisoners. For over 150 years, the Eastern State Penitentiary housed murderers, gangsters, and the criminally insane. Al Capone, America's most notorious gangster, was sentenced to 1 year at the Eastern State Penitentiary in 1929.
By far the most famous of our alumni is Al Capone. A lot of people don't realize that the first time that Capone was in prison was in Philadelphia. He was traveling from Atlantic City back to his home in Chicago, and Philadelphia police stopped him while he was in town and searched him and found that Capone was carrying a .38 caliber revolver, and it was loaded. The courts in Philadelphia wanted to make an example out of this famous Chicago gangster, and so they gave him the maximum sentence, which was 1 year in prison. Ironically, though, they sent him up here to Eastern State Penitentiary, and while the courts were trying to be harsh with Capone, the Department of Corrections was extremely generous. And so while he lived here, Capone had oriental rugs and oil paintings on the wall of his cell, and he had a cabinet-style radio, which would be fairly high-tech, like having a DVD player now. We've never known why he got such special treatment while he was here. He might have bribed the warden. It might have just been that he was a celebrity.
In 1956, cell block number 15, also known as Death Row, was constructed at the Eastern State Penitentiary, one of the last buildings added to the prison complex.
Cell Block 15, otherwise known as Death Row, was a two-story building that housed the worst examples of humanity.
Cell Block 15 was the last cell block added into the Eastern State Penitentiary complex, and it's where they housed the most violent and disruptive inmates in the Pennsylvania system. It's the only cell block that had the modern electronic door locks where they could open and close cells by pushing buttons, which kept the guards distanced from the inmates. They were scared of these guys. Many inmates spent the last weeks, days, hours of their life inside of cell block 15, and on the day of their execution, they'd be shipped out to a different institution to die in Pennsylvania's electric chair.
By the 1960s, the march of time had been particularly unforgiving to the old prison. The Eastern State Penitentiary was considered out of date and in a state of miserable disrepair, and in 1971, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania officially closed the doors of the historic Eastern State Penitentiary. Reopened in 1994 as an historic site, daily public tours are conducted at the Eastern State Penitentiary, and special ghost tours are held at night prior to Halloween. No better place could be found to host a ghost tour. In fact, many visitors come to the prison in the hopes of having a supernatural encounter with one of its many spirits. The prison's fortress-like atmosphere, crumbling cell blocks, and water-stained ceilings most certainly lends itself to the perception that the place could be haunted.
I think there's a couple different reasons that Eastern State is so haunted. First is the stone construction. A lot of old buildings, especially public works buildings, were made out of stone. And a lot of paranormal researchers have proven that certain types of stone seem to magnify or collect psychic or spirit energy, and that would explain untimely demise of so many people and so many horrific experiences of the different prisoners there really have embedded themselves into the very foundations of the prison. And it's like a giant tape recorder that replays these horrific experiences over and over and over again, and probably will never end with the amount of torture and torment that's taken place there.
But for those lucky or unlucky few who have experienced something not of this world inside the prison, paranormal ambience definitely does not account for all the things they have encountered there. In September 2001, members of the Philadelphia Ghost Hunters Alliance conducted an investigation at various locations within the main part of the prison. Armed with night vision scopes, digital recorders, and photographic equipment, investigators set out to find evidence that ghosts exist at the Eastern State Penitentiary.
Their investigation really focused on cell blocks 5 and 6. Members, initially when they arrived, reported seeing a figure step out of a cell, and it caught one of the members' attention, and they went and investigated further, and as the investigator approached, the figure stepped back in the cell. And when the investigator arrived, they found that the cell was empty. The Philadelphia Ghost Hunters Alliance basically determined after their investigation that the prison really could be haunted based on all the numerous experiences that they dealt with on that particular evening.
According to various paranormal researchers, there are several areas in the Eastern State Penitentiary that appear to magnify the spirit energy trapped within its walls.
Guards and visitors over the years reported hearing disembodied voices and screams and wails and cries that just seemed to emanate from the deepest bowels of the prison, where no person could actually get to.
Ghostly encounters are not limited to the prison building alone. The ghost of a prison guard has been observed numerous times in one of the prison's guard towers. What did the guard witness in the courtyard that tethers his spirit to the prison even in death? No one knows for sure.
One of the towers, a guard is seen to keep watch on an empty prison. Why a prison guard would want to be there after they've passed on to the other side, I don't know. But who knows the horrors that this particular guard has seen during his time at the prison. And he's still said to keep watch from his guard tower, watch the inner courtyard of the prison.
Probably one of the eeriest stories told about the old deteriorating landmark centers around the terrifying experience of a locksmith who was called into work on several locks inside the prison.
When the prison became a historical location, they started doing ghost tours right before Halloween. And a locksmith was called in to work on a couple of the older locks just to facilitate the tour. As the gentleman was working on the locks, he looked down the hall and he saw a person standing there watching him. He had that feeling that somebody or something was watching him. And as he looked at this figure, he noticed that it started to kind of fade. It was solid as you or I, and then it would just kind of turn into like a smoke or just a kind of an outline of a person. And as he watched, he noticed that this smoke started to move down the hall towards him. And he sat there in kind of a stunned silence watching this smoke just kind of creep down the hall, and right before it reached him, it shot up into the ceiling. The locksmith looked up, kind of expecting probably to see an apparition or what have you, or at least to see where the smoke had gone. And instead, he saw numerous glowing cat eyes that were looking down at him, blinking. And in a maniacal voice, he heard the words, "We're watching you."
Others have reported seeing human shadows disappearing into walls of solid stone, while others have encountered a vaguely humanoid specter which is said to exude a profound loathing from somewhere inside its wisp-like form. Other volunteers working in the 6th block have reported seeing ghostly figures darting back and forth across corridors and disappearing into rooms. In each instance, no one has been able to identify the source of the strange noises or the wraith-like visitors.
Without a doubt, the Eastern State Penitentiary is haunted. There were evil men placed in this prison to keep them away from humanity, and that evil still exists there today. Only now it's just waiting in the shadows, waiting for that unsuspecting visitor to get too close, to finally make or exact its revenge.
We've always heard that Eastern State is haunted, and it's hard not to walk around here and feel that people just left, or that there's something happening behind you. But then you look around, you see the way the building's deteriorating, and it's this lost world of just crumbling walls and skylights throwing the light down, or moonlight at night. And it's very, very spooky. You have to believe that if there are ghosts anywhere, they would be here, because there were so many thousands and thousands of people who lived out the end of their life in this building, trying to get out and not able to do it.
The numerous paranormal events encountered by visitors and staff, coupled with the documented incidents reported by ghost investigators at the Eastern State Penitentiary, are proof that sometimes, when a prison is abandoned, the spirits of the men and women who died there linger behind. What lurks in the shadows behind the walls of the old Eastern State Penitentiary? No one knows for sure, but one irrefutable fact seems to go unquestioned. When the prison is silent, and the only noise that can be heard is the howl of the wind through the halls or the groan of a cell door moving by itself, the prison's horrible past creeps out and mingles with the present.
Eastern State Penitentiary is just a difficult place to be at night. It's creepy, and we generally keep out of here after sunset.